Welcome, everyone. Have a seat. Thanks for coming. I have the lovely job of introducing Blas Isasi Gutierrez, this year's Freund Teaching Fellow. He is a Peruvian artist, most recently living and working in New Orleans. But before I tell you about Blas, I want to tell you a little bit about the Freund Teaching Fellowship. So 39 years ago, the incredibly generous Freund family set up two funds, one at WashU and one at the St. Louis Art Museum, so that we could work together on bringing in a promising artist each year. The idea is that they would teach for us for a semester, be in residence, and then the next year they would have a solo show at SLAM. So we've literally been doing this for 39 years. Some of the past Freund fellows are Catherine Opie, Ellen Gallagher, Matthew Buckingham, Sarah Oppenheimer, Jennifer Bornstein, and very recent fellows include Maleko Makosi, Tamara Johnson, and Crystal Campbell, whose work is up right now at SLAM in the current series. So what I'm trying to say is that we have a record of selecting really promising artists who go on to make significant contributions to the field. So as I already mentioned, the Freund family insightfully set up this generous fund at both institutions. And then once every 2 years, we make a national and international call for applications for the opportunity. And we review a ton of unbelievably interesting artists. Last year, I worked with Simon Kelly, the curator and head of the Department of Modern and Contemporary Art at SLAM. Where's there? And together we sifted through tons of applicants from around the world and got it down to 9 with whom we had detailed interviews. And we picked 2, Blas Isasi and Clarissa Tassin. Blas is here this semester teaching a class called Going Against the Grain, a class deeply and profoundly about wood. And his solo show at SLAM is scheduled to open in February of 2026. Clarissa Tassin will be here next spring and will be teaching a seminar about the politics of textiles, and she'll have her solo show at SLAM the following year. When each artist is here, they have a studio across the way in Weil Hall over there, next to all the grads, and they work in our shops, creating work for their upcoming show, and they meet with Simon and the museum staff, making plans for their show, and at the end of the semester, they head home to complete the work and come back to install and open the show. At that time, they also give a formal lecture about their work at the museum. So now you have a little sense of how the process works. Now let me tell you a little bit about Blas. Blas earned a BA in painting, and excuse how I say all of this stuff that's not in English. He earned a BA in painting from Pontificia, Universidad, Católica del Perú in 2005. He started showing in Peru. In 2014, he won a residency at the Jan van Eyck Academie in Maastricht in the Netherlands. The next year, he got the Braunschweig Projects Scholarship at Braunschweig University of the Arts in Lower Saxony, Germany. And then he went to grad school at Tulane in New Orleans, where he earned an MFA in sculpture. Then he did a residence, he's an artist in residence at the Joan Mitchell Center, and now he's here. Importantly, all that time, he was showing his work nationally and internationally. This year, he's got a solo show coming up at Shed Projects in Cleveland. And right now, he has a killer project with Prospect 6 in New Orleans. So in case you don't know what Prospect 6 is, it's an art exhibition that takes place in New Orleans every 3 years since the devastation of Katrina. The exhibition is spread throughout the city, and Blas is one of 51 artists in the show. His exhibition is in an abandoned Ford factory right on the Mississippi. It's an incredible site made ever more incredible by the interventions of Blas. I can't wait for him to show you what he's been doing. We're so lucky to have him in our community. So let me stop scene setting and get out of the way and welcome Blas.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for your generous introduction, and thank you all for attending this lecture. I know the weather is not the best, so I really appreciate you showing up. And no? Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I want to thank samfoxschool. I want to thank the Freud Fellowship for bringing me here to St. Louis. And I want to, again, thank all of you for attending my lecture, in spite of the bad weather. So I guess that I should start from what in my mind is the departing point of my present exploration and research. And this happened at the Jan van Eyck Academie. It was a year-long residency in Maastricht, the Netherlands. And I am originally, my background is that of a painter. And I was a photorealist painter, believe it or not. And I had reached a point when I was really tired and frustrated about painting in a photorealist way. And I was struggling and trying to find ways of reinventing myself. And that's when I got to the Jan van Eyck Academie. And I was experiencing this imposter syndrome in a way, and feeling that I had to show them that I really deserved this opportunity. And so I struggled for maybe 3 months until I finally had a studio visit with one of the mentors at Jan van Eyck, Christian, and he just advised me to chill and understand that this was a time for me to do with it whatever I wanted to. And it took me a few weeks to internalize and what he was trying to say. And in a very intuitive way, I started to just play around with paper. I always loved paper as a material, but I didn't want to go on to painting or drawing. I wanted to experiment with the material in a different way. And that's how, in a very intuitive way, I started just weaving long strips of paper. And again, in a very intuitive way. And I want to show you this little protuberance at the center of the piece. That's where I started. And I was clueless about what the work would end up looking like. And I was just following the material for the first time, establishing a very horizontal conversation with the material and granting the material, in this case paper, more agency over the creative process. And at times granting the material the lead in the process. And the piece just started to grow and grow and grow in a very organic, almost rhizomatic way. And as it became larger and larger, it became heavier. And it demanded, or it was kind of asking me to create some sort of structures or something that would hold the weight of the pieces or the extensions. And that's how I came up with these cardboard structures that would also interact with these paper weavings in a very interesting way, because they would bend under the weight of the paper pieces over time. And they would warp and do strange things. You can see a little bit of that on that little structure there. So that, for me, was a very exciting time. My practice took a 190-degree turn, and I was very excited about it. But it was still a very formal kind of research, exploration. It became more and more sophisticated over time. This is a second project, also at the Jan van Eyck. A little bit more sophisticated, more cohesive, if you want. And I took this exploration further, brought it back to Lima, and I started to be more intentional about it, establishing a more a dialogue or a conversation with the tradition of painting, and paying attention to the material, like developing these like deep listening skills. Like for instance, in this particular example, I would like make the weaving very, 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 very tight. So these undulations started to like occur, and I thought this was like a great opportunity to like create a sort of like a system to represent this undulation in a logic that is very that reminds me of the famous story by Jorge Luis Borges on the exactitude of science, this map that overlaps the territory, that is the same size at the same scale. So I was having these kind of like thoughts and conversations with the tradition of painting again. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. This is my last paper woven piece that I presented at my first institutional show at ICNA in Lima. And this was also an interesting moment in my research when I started to play around with wood as a material for the first time. And I'm going to show you these pieces that I was very timid at first in engaging with wood, but I was paying attention to the material. Like I was trying to like highlight or certain features of the wood, such as nuts and the grain and whatnot, but still in a very subtle and very timid way. But it was already happening. I was also playing around with, again, the knots to create like faces or something that resembles, you know, or that evokes the human features. And then this is a parallel exploration where once again I was engaging with the tradition of painting. This time I was reflecting on the physicality of the pigment by rendering the support almost transparent or invisible. And but again, these are very like formal explorations still. I was definitely hinting to the Peruvian, the Peruvian tradition of textile, which dates back to thousands of years. This is the largest piece I did on this. So I would just basically use like this chicken mesh, this screen, and add acrylic painting from the back with a very, very fine, very fine brush. So that's also something that is that characterizes my practice, and that is very time-consuming, detail-oriented, because I firmly believe that labor-intensive and time-consuming kind of work has the ability to imbue the work with a spirit or with an essence, or to summon spirits or whatnot. This is the work that I presented for my MFA show at Tulane University. Again, this I brought with me the interest and the want of working with wood. Sorry. And I was just trying to see how much I could push the physical properties of wood. Here I would excavate and carve out all of the soft grain from these beams and create this tension within like this arch tunnel kind of situation to make this sort of this warping of the wood. And in my mind, it was a way, a symbolic, poetic gesture to basically allow for the wood to reclaim its organic forms, to break out from these geometric constraints that wood is subject under the commodity regime, so to speak. And I was also, for the first time, being very intentional or more aware of the space and trying to intentionally bring the space, the venue, the walls into the conversation. Activate them by creating this sort of like little arm that goes around one of the sides of the this doorway. And I also had like a magical moment, and this is something that I really enjoy very much about my practice. One of my favorite moments is the installing of the work. In my mind, it's like I would spend, I don't know, say a year working on fabricating my little toys, and finally, during the install, I get a chance to play with my toys. It's like a playground. So I had this moment of revelation here when I realized that there was a sad face living within this sculpture. And in my mind, it was a way in which the plants, these palm trees, were conveying the fact that they were not very happy with what I was doing with them. So yeah, it was a magical moment in a way. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. And this brings me to my my two last projects. So one of the things that was very important to me in the last 6 years is that, and this happens a lot with, I feel, immigrants, and that is that the action of emigrating, leaving your country, it kind of changes your perspective on things and on identity. It compels you to focus more on your own identity, your own lived experience in a different way. So for the longest time, I've been obsessed about my country's history, its complicated, problematic post-colonial history, but I'm obsessed particularly about its pre-Columbian history. And so in case you don't know, Andean civilization is the one exception to the rule in that it's the only one civilization that decided not to develop a written system. So we don't have any written documentation. They didn't left any written documentation, so we cannot access their cosmology, their civilizatory experience in a direct way. We only have like their material culture, their objects, the artifacts, and the architecture that they left behind. And so that creates a set of problems and challenges, and there's definitely a wall that we cannot break, which in my mind, it's kind of like a gift in a way, because it presents us with the opportunity to speculate a lot. So this is, in my view, like, you have to understand that the Peruvian territory, or the Andean territory, is organized in this, has these three major geographical regions: the desert coast, the highlands, and the Amazon rainforest. And they run parallel to each other, north to south. And they're very, very different from each other, but they conform one single system. It's a very complex territory. And in my mind, there's two main architectural traditions in ancient Peru. And I believe that architecture, in this case, is one of the best entry points to examine or interrogate Andean cosmology. So you have the highlands tradition, which crystallizes with the Incan experience. And what the Incas did, as most other highlands cultures and kingdoms, they used stone as a building material. But the thing is that, and of course, the stone is a material that is meant to last forever. It's almost like a testimony of endurance. And but the thing here is that they went they applied this, or they had this very particular perspective on the subject, and they created these designs that blend in the landscape in a very sophisticated way, where they blur the limits that separate the built environment from the natural environment. And that's one thing that fascinates me a lot about them. Some more examples of that. But then you have the coastal tradition. Most of the civilizations that rose in, that flourished in the desert were most famously Moche, Chimu, Nazca, Paracas, and they were more in line with other civilizations in creating these big monumental pyramids and buildings where these hard geometries are predominant. And in my mind, these hard geometries, pyramids, plazas and whatnot, this emphasis on straight lines, straight angles and whatnot, it's almost like an affirmation of humanity belonging to a different realm as the rest of nature, right? So, but the key here is that they used adobe or mud bricks as their building material. And in my mind, this is a very poetic gesture, a very strong statement about what their perspective on or what their cosmology was about. Because adobe is a soft material that it's prone to be affected by the environment, rains, wind and whatnot. And that's how this, you can see the reconstruction here of how we think that this particular complex looked like and how it looks like nowadays. It looks like a natural formation, a mountain or a hill. And I believe that that was very intentional. I believe that they understood their place within the cosmos as one more agent that is in charge of managing the landscape and the environment. So those kind of perspectives are the ones that are, I really like. Those attitudes are the ones that inspire my work, that I want to bring into my work. Of course, these temples were active for centuries, meaning that they would be renovated every now and then. So we still have access to the earliest versions of the temples. But this is what the coastal landscape looks like. This is where I come from. I am from Lima. I'm from the coast. And this is the kind of landscape that's very much part of me. And this looks, of course, like a hill, but it's actually an ancient temple, an ancient pyramid that has been violated, excavated by looters from the 20th century that were looking for ancient burials, treasures, and whatnot. And this is also a very good example of what the landscape looks like around these places. Those holes that looks like craters are actually holes dug by the looters in search of looking for treasures and whatnot. And this is a very common sight. And this is, to me, it's like, in my mind, it's a testimony, or this speaks volumes about how the past is very much present in a context such as Peru, where the dynamics of capitalism basically unearth these remains and make them convert them into commodities, and they start like circulating in the economy and in the value chain and whatnot. And to me, this is fascinating. And this is what brought me to my second last project that I presented at the Freund in New Orleans. It's an artist-run space. And this is when I thought about like making this, activating this landscape, granting it a kind of like a vital, a certain vitality, and activating these features of the landscape, such as bones, exposed bones, the sand, the erosion, and other agents, cosmic agents, kind of like highlight them in a way. And this is the first iteration of something that I would repeat again for my prospect project. And I was trying to explore or think about ways of presenting like allegorical representations of the Andean territory that are closer or more in tune with the original way in which the territory was organized in ancient Peru. Notions of circularity, non-linearity, and simultaneity. Those are concepts that I tried to bring into this specific piece, where the desert coast, the highlands, and the Amazonian rainforest are kind of like mixed together in a different way. This is another instance where I kind of like toy with the idea for the first time of the culture dish. I'm trying to bring into the conversation the idea of science as a product of Western epistemology, as a way of producing or creating hybridity. Of course, this is hinting to like certain desert vegetation, but in a very hybrid way. Yeah, and there's something about fingers. This is the first time that I made these like weird fingers that are growing from these what I call sandstones. And I was not entirely sure why they were showing up in my work, but they would become like a more persistent feature. And this brings me to my prospect project that is currently on view until this weekend. So the project is titled 11532 Common Era, which is basically a very speculative exploration of the idea of history, human history, and deep time being part of the same system, basically collapsing the two of them into one single system. And I am referring specifically to 1532, to the Battle of Cajamarca, which is when the Spanish conquistadors fought against the Inca Empire, and that's when the beginning of the end of the Andean civilizatory experience. And this is in my mind, the conquest of Peru plays a very important role in modern history. In my mind, it's one of the ground zero moments of modernity and European imperialism and whatnot, because it granted access, it granted Europeans through Spain access to immense riches that provoked the first or one of the biggest original accumulation processes in history that propelled modernity, European imperialism, and capitalism as a whole. So it's a moment that will have, that has ramifications until this day, together with other moments such as the conquest of the Aztec Empire or the infamous Atlantic triangle trade triangle. And So what I'm trying to suggest is that these historical episodes will have ramifications and ripple effects until the end of times, like in a butterfly effect kind of situation. And here I'm sort of like putting in play many metaphors and allegories, because you see in the Battle of Cajamarca, in this first encounter between these two radically different cosmologies, epistemologies, and ontologies, the Western and the Andean, clashing in a very violent way for the first time, gave place to like the most weird instances of mistranslation, misinterpretation, and whatnot. And every piece and every sculpture in this project has almost like almost like personal like jokes or metaphors, in that they are impregnated with multiple little riddles and whatnot that are almost cryptic and demands a lot from the viewer to invest himself or themselves into trying to understand. They need a lot of context, of course. But yeah, here you can see that I'm trying to activate the features that I talked about a little earlier that are very characteristic of the Peruvian desert: bones, hair, precious metals, sand, and whatnot, trying to grant them some life kind of features or feelings. And I also have to say that I should also mention the fact that these very colorful, mostly like representational kind of features of the work are made of a mix of modeling clay, wax, and paraffin. And that is also a very intentional thing, working with a material that will never cure, that renders the piece very vulnerable and fragile. And that to me is a very important like poetic gesture, a statement of sorts. Excuse me. And then you have these sculptures that are kind of alluding to a particular tree that is endemic to the Peruvian desert, the algarrobo. I don't know what the translation is in English, but I'm kind of suggesting a different kind of growth, a growth that is non-linear, a growth that is not arboreal, because there are basically loops, endless loops, that are not rooted in the ground. And there are a series of these loop trees, so to speak, that populate the space, and each one suggests like a different stage in the growth of these plants. And I want to go back to this particular piece, which is very much tied to the one that I talked earlier about in my previous project. This is meant to be also an allegorical representation of the Peruvian territory prior to the conquest of the Inca Empire. A territory that is organized in a spiraling configuration, a spiral that, an ascending spiral that ends at a mountain peak. So in case you don't know, mountains in ancient Peru and in present Peru are considered to be sacred. Not only that they are sacred beings, active beings that participate in politics and society in ways that we, from a Western perspective, cannot understand. And from the tip of the mountain peak emerges this huachuma, It's a sacred cactus, very much similar to the peyote in Mexico. It's a sacred cactus that was used by shamans and other perspectival travelers. So it's kind of like a statement of a sovereign, absolutely independent territory that was not yet subjugated by the West. And then this is also a very important piece in the installation that is meant as an allegorical representation of the Western epistemology, in a way. It has this very straight tubes structure that alludes to Euclidean space as a way, a system, like a virtual grid that colonizes and takes over space and projects power. And there's also this sort of hint to, again, the culture dish and science that reminds me of the famous phrase by Francisco de Goya, the one of the El sueño de la razón produce monstruos, the dream of reason produces monsters. And this, it has like, you have this blonde hair growing from the dish as a way to like suggest this, the idea of whiteness as one of the monsters and constructs that emerged from the Western modern epistemology. And then I also want to talk about this piece in particular, because one of the challenges I faced with this project when the curators of Prospect approached me for the first time, they asked me, Miranda Lash and Ebony Patterson, G. Patterson, they asked me, where is it that I wanted to present my work? And my first thought was, of course, a white cube, a safe place, so to speak. You know, I was thinking of the CAC in New Orleans. But then I also told them that I was willing to take some risks, and I was hoping to hear from them what they thought about it. And they suggested the idea of like maybe a warehouse kind of situation. So I went for that. But the thing is that, like I said, these sculptures are very fragile, very vulnerable. So it was a really like a nightmare kind of situation. I had to wait until the very last minute to bring the sculptures made of modeling clay, because if you've never been to New Orleans, it's very hot. We have a 6-month-long summer, and I had to wait until the very last minute for the weather to cool down, and so that the sculptures would be able to like endure the temperature. But also, it's very humid. It's highly humid. So wood, of course, is very absorbs humidity. And this guy had been standing there for 3 weeks prior to the opening of Prospect. And the day after inauguration, this happened. Yeah, I was in shock. So it broke in two. And I managed to like make it look as like it was not broken. I kind of like managed to hit the broken parts and whatnot, and it looks intentional. But in any case, it speaks to the fact that, yeah, these are living beings in a way that are subject to the symbolic violence on the one hand, intrinsic to the project, and also vulnerable to the environment, because this is a non-climate control kind of venue. I don't know if I should be sharing this in front of the slam Simon. I know that this is a nightmare for a museum, so, but well, it's done. In any case, this was not the only one instance where the tension between the venue and the pieces was evident, but we had lots of visitors. So yeah, this is an abandoned factory. So it's basically inhabited by all kinds of animals, from lizards to rodents and bigger mammals. So they were basically leaving traces of their existence. And I thought that was magical, and there's also another factor that it's hard to, you can see it here. So the way that light activated the sculptures was also very significant. I didn't quite, I was not able to test how light would affect the sculptures until the very last minute. So the fact that it was a success, it's also partly due to being lucky, fortune. But yeah, the light would activate the sculptures and would change the atmosphere of the space in the most magical way. And that's one of the things I feel the most proud about this particular project, the fact that that it activated the building and it established this very complicated dialogue, tense dialogue at times, but also beautiful dialogue with the sculptures. And that was Prospect. And now I would like to share with you some peaks of my work in progress. So one of the things that the project I'm currently working on for SLAM, it's got to do with certain technologies, political technologies and power technologies from ancient Peru that were, as is the case for most other non-Western cultures or traditions, were basically demoted to the category of superstition or systems of beliefs in the best case scenario. But in my mind, these are technologies that we need to rehabilitate in order to recruit them for the fight in our current crisis, multiple crises. In any case, I'm very much fascinated by these bone carvings. And I've been wanting to work with bone for a long time. And this is my first attempt. It's a small piece that is going to be part of a larger one. But this idea of not only carving bone, but also fleshing it out, it's something that I'm really excited about. And I'm sharing this with you, with the public for the first time, which makes me feel a little bit vulnerable. But yeah, I'm very excited about this. I'm also excited about this other side of the project, and that is that I'm very much obsessed with these artifacts made of gold and silver. And I'm trying to, I'm using foil, aluminum foil, to create these forms that allude to these ancient artifacts, but that are very thin and very, very light. And I'm trying to activate them with wind in order to suggest the idea of them having certain agency and life of their own. But in any case, these are very early stages of this project. It's still a work in progress. It will take me some time to put everything together. But yeah, this has been my presentation. So thank you. Yeah, please. Yes.
I was curious about you explained with the blonde hair, but the massive hair that was underneath the spiral. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So in ancient Peru, as it is the case in many other non-Western cultures, the idea of representation is not something that exists. It's mostly about embodiment. So it was a very common practice in ancient Peru to insert hair or nails or bones or whatever into a given object, a given artifact, in order to make it embody a subject instead of just representing it. So yeah, it was a way to multiply these subjects, multiply these bodies. And for example, there was this particular very important artifact that would embody the Inca, the emperor, and that would be sent away to distant provinces in order to duplicate him. So people would understand when seeing the object that this was not a representation, this was not a portrait, because also it was a very abstract representation. It was not like a portrait. So they would understand that that was the Inca in person, that was the emperor in person. It was not just a representation. So that's the kind of like technologies of embodiment that I'm trying to tap on and that I'm trying to bring into my practice.
Can you describe what was going on with those plants?
Plants?
Were those real plants?
Ah, yes. You're talking about...
It was worth asking this question just to get the
These guys, right? Yeah, so I was, for this project, I was kind of tapping on the some ideas of modern design and in architecture and whatnot. Like in the case of the Global South, there's this tradition of modernism as being a sign of hope, the idea of progress and whatnot. And I was trying to bring that into the conversation. And I am not sure how the plants made their way into the work. This was a very intuitive project. And I had this idea for a long time about weeding palm trees, live palm trees. Like, what would that do to the plant? And I was just obsessed about this idea, and I normally, so the thing is that I very rarely make any sketches, so I had no idea what was going to happen until the very end. So yeah, I guess that's not an answer to your question, but yeah, sorry. Yes, Amy.
I wanted to ask about the clay city that you showed, and then the deteriorated city as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like 100% Adobe all the way through?
Yes.
That was a clay pit already, or
No.
they brought the clay pit?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're huge. They're huge, huge, huge. Yes.
I really enjoyed the way your works are like these kind of big sculptures, and then you have these moments of discovery, these micro like universes to create. And I'm very curious to know like what's the process like
Yeah, it's, I mean, there are many tricks that we as artists use in our work. Repetition is one, for sure. And this trick of zoom in, zoom out, that's one I really love very much, bringing in my work. And I feel like not only that it, like you said, it creates these moments of like discovery, these moments of surprise, but it also activates the viewer's body in a way. It compels the viewer to move and to activate its body in a very intentional way. So yes, I am intentional to an extent, but I also I am never entirely sure about what the results will be, basically. Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more? You made a comment about like using the paraffin and wax and clay and how it's very vulnerable and impermanent. Can you just speak a little bit more about that?
Right. So I also said that I do believe that investing like labor-intensive and detail-oriented work is a way, in my mind, to grant an object of a spirit of sorts. But I also want to fight back, in a way, the preciousness that comes with that. I don't want to. I want to avoid fetishizing those precious objects because they cannot be preserved in the long term. They have a limited period of life. They have a short life, say a few years or whatnot. And I don't think that it started as an intentional way. I gained awareness of that and became intentional, like after the fact. Yeah.
In much of your work, you're working with very rich materials, especially your later work, such as like using wood and bone. But the way you're treating them lends almost like a surreal liquidity. Can you talk more about your process and the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have an answer for that. That's a very good observation, and thank you. Again, it goes back to Dallas' question. Like, I really tend to go for make very fragile works that that are going to be very hard to preserve. There's something about that. The fact that they are so vulnerable and fragile. I feel like that that allows for, that demands care from the viewer. Like, I feel like that's the one feeling that I want to make the viewer have, like wanting to care for this object, wanting to look after it, to care for the object. Yes.
So I saw the Prospect Picto and there was a thing about the color that was so vivid that it seemed like, well, it seemed fragile. It seemed like it couldn't stay that way. Like it would fade or something. And so I do think that response in the viewer that you hoped for it was like you couldn't help it. Like you just automatically thought, "Ooh, my gosh, nothing's gonna be okay." But I wondered if you could make that part in a way that looked like that, but that wasn't fragile, that was permanent. Would you do it?
I would say no, because one of the things that I love about that material is the fact that I can come back to it anytime I want. I can change it, I can modify it at will. And yeah, I don't want it to be permanent. It comes at a cost, a big cost, in fact, but I don't want them to last forever.
I really, first of all, really enjoy the combination of care and planning that's evident in the work juxtaposed with the more spontaneous and temporal elements. And I know this piece in particular is from an earlier time than the ones that you're showing later with the wax. But on reflection, like, so one of the things I was thinking about while you're talking is that this piece in particular took care and planning to make, right? You know, the woodworking and the, you know, the plant stands. And then we have this spontaneous use of the plants and the folded palms. How do you think about temporality with, on reflection, like with the palms? Like, do you think of those as things that need to be cared for? Like, does somebody need to water them? And if, and like if they die, you know, like, do they get replaced? Like, how does that, how do you think about all that?
Well, to be honest, for that specific project, I didn't have the chance to think about that. It was 2020, COVID times. I just graduated from my MFA program, and I had nowhere to store these pieces. So I basically had to donate these plants to friends and family, and I couldn't keep these sculptures. I had to chop them and just like, yeah, give up on them. So, yeah, yeah. You had a question?
Yeah. Through like the art pieces that you've shown, you've used like similar materials. Like you've used wood, like for a lot of it. You've used like the metal in terms of like meshes, and then later on with the different frames, and now with the mask that you were kind of showing. How has your relationship with each of those materials kind of changed, and how has your like viewing of each material changed as you've used them?
Yeah, so there's also an aspect that speaks to the impermanence of the work that is very much characteristic of my work, my practice, and that is that I go through these cycles where I engage in this very intense, intimate dialogue with a material, with a given material, and then when I feel like I've mastered it, I slowly start to give up on it, like just like abandon it and move on to a different material. I don't know, in a way it's just to keep things exciting, to be constantly like learning new skills and learning new materials and whatnot. So that's how and why almost every time, in every project, I bring a new material into the conversation, and I get excited about it, and then I give up on it. So there's this sort of like flux in the work. So that's the way I engage with the materials.
Kind of continuing off of that, when you were walking us through, when you started working with wood, it was the only time that you expressed that you had a little bit of a timidness. What was it about working with wood that created that? And then where on the journey did that timidity start to go away? And how did that then affect as you progressed to other, I mean, eventually you're working in these, mixed items that are telling these incredibly complex, fascinating stories. So I'm curious how you worked through that and why it was that wood started you to explain it that way. As opposed to, I would think a man saying, now I'm using hair extensions, that might be timid, but no, it's at the first part of wood that you mentioned that.
Yeah, well, so like I said, my original background is that of a painter. So diving into the realm of the 3D, three-dimensional work, it took some time for me to feel fully comfortable. And I feel like that's the reason why I started with paper. It was a familiar material. So the next step was, going into using wood. But again, I was not confident enough. I didn't have the set of skills that I have now. This was before going for my MFA in sculpture. And it's kind of like the fish and the tank kind of metaphor. Once I had access to facilities, tools, and whatnot, that's when I thrived.
Can you just talk a bit more about the kinds of wood that you use and the kind of signification that might be embedded in those particular materials?
Right. So I really use the cheapest off the shelf kind of wood, pine wood from Home Depot or Lowe's. And in the beginning it was because it was cheap, but there was, I remember like having this, noticing that every sign in the store was in both Spanish and English. It did something for me. It kind of like, made me aware of the fact that this particular material was very much related to a particular social group in this specific society, immigrants, Hispanic, Latinos immigrants. And I felt, a certain like community that these off-the-shelf, cheap material construction materials, building materials, belong to my same community. And of course, I didn't come to this country as an immigrant, as an illegal immigrant or anything. I came as a student. My experience was different, but I belong to the same community by default. So I felt like some degree of belonging, if that makes sense at all.
Well, luckily, he's going to be here all semester, so if you have more questions, find us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.